This is my second video reviewing the filter system by KentFaith, otherwise known K&F Concept. They were kind enough to send me a set of filters for me to review for them. What's special about these filters is that they're magnetic circular filters, so that makes it incredibly easy to attach them to the lens. So in my last video I looked at those aspects of the system and whether or not it actually did what it said on the tin, and it would make my life so much easier. The other reason that I really wanted to go and look at these filters as well was because the amount of space that my old system takes up. It's huge compared to the new one which I'm looking at. This system involved carrying a number of 100mm square filters and also some grads in there as well, and also a number of lens adapters and filter holders as well. Whereas this system allows me to attach the whole lot to the lens up front. It attaches very easily with magnets to keep it in place, and it's quick and easy to use. So on that aspect, the system actually passed with flying colours. Today's story is about the optical performance of these filters, because these are at a very, very good price point, and you could consider that whether or not at this price point, whether or not they have the quality, and that's what we aim to find out today. So I've set up an experiment which I'm going to do, obviously not here in the office, because I'm a landscape photographer and everything has to work and happen out there in the landscape. It's not good enough just for a lab test to work out. I want to review these filters where you guys are going to be using them if you decide to adopt them. So let's go and do that now. So I've come to a place which is really quite close to where I live. Unfortunately it's a little bit busy and I don't like filming when there's lots of people about, but it's a good spot for doing this. I needed a very simple subject. I needed a subject which included normal elements in it that I would normally shoot as a landscape photographer. So we've got some water, we've got some woodland and some hills in the background as well. I also needed a subject that was very evenly lit, and it's a very grey, cloudy day, so that's going to work really quite well. In fact, to be honest, the fact that it is so grey and cloudy today may give me some issues with exposure, because I was hoping to shoot at ISO 100. I think I'm probably going to end up at pushing that up to 200 or even 400. So I'm going to set the camera up, but rather than go through all of that as I'm doing it, I'm going to explain to you what I'm going to do. So I want to take a number of images which are exactly the same. So I'm going to set the camera up on the tripod with no filters on it. I'm going to take a base image so I've got something to compare them all back to. And then in turn of each of my two filter systems, obviously the K&F one is the one that I'm really interested in. I'm going to take a picture with the ND8 64 and 1000, so 3, 6 and 10 stop neutral density filters, and we'll also take one with the circular polarizer. Now I've set a chart up on my phone so that I can record those results, and then when we get back to the office we can offer each of those up and have a look at it. Okay, so let's have a look at these files. I've done all the editing and all the tests for these inside of Adobe Photoshop, and I've also done it inside of Lightroom to start with. Now when I say editing, that editing is actually really quite limited. So other than the final photographs that I'm going to show you at the end, all these images are raw files straight out of the camera. So let's look inside of Lightroom. So what I did was to make sure that I had them divided up and good separation between the images. You'll see black frames which indicate exactly where the various sets of photographs begin and end. There is one reference file, it's this one here which I'm pointing to now, which was used to actually set up all the other images against. So this is the one where it's been taken without using any of the filters in front of the camera. The first set of images I take with the 3ND filters and the circular polarizer are for the K&F filters. The second three are for the Lee neutral density filter. This one here on its own is the Lee polarizer. And then we've got some finished photographs at the end which I put in just to see what they would actually perform like produced in a real world landscape photography situation. So let's go into each of these in turn. Now what I did to make the comparisons a bit easier is I actually set them up inside of Photoshop. And the first thing I want to look at is the color check. Now the color check is a little bit of a strange point really, because you could argue that with today's modern cameras you don't actually need it. And the reason I say that is because inside of your editing software, and indeed inside of your camera as well, you can set the camera up to modify the color balance depending on the lighting, and most of that measurement is done through the lens. So actually, if your filter's in front of the camera, it shouldn't make any difference whatsoever. But it does make a difference when you're a film shooter and you want to obviously get the best capture and rendering of those colors on the film. So it's important that we look at it. So let's first of all look at the Lee color check. So this is my existing system. We've got the original reference file in the middle, and we can see around the outside edge between the ND80 in the top left, the ND64 below it, the ND1000 or 10 stop in the top right, down to the circular polarizer, that there is a wide range and difference in the way that these filters render color. Now there may be a very good reason for that. My Lee filter system is very old. The filters have been purchased over a number of different years, and the chances are that these will vary slightly, and it will mean that we've got that variation. So this is no reflection on the quality of Lee at all. And I've never noticed this before when I've been working, because I use auto white balance. If we look at the K&F concept filters, comparing it to the original in the middle, you will notice that actually the color balance between this set of filters is actually very good. Now they have come as a set. There is slight variations between them, but there's nothing here that really worries me too much, and I can be fairly confident that I'm going to get a consistent performance across the range of the filters, which gives us a little bit more confidence as photographers when we're out in the field. Okay, so let's talk about the sharpness. The sharpness check, I zoomed into a section of the photographs at 100%. And when I looked at those at 100% and compared it to the original across the full range of, in fact, the K&F and also the Lee filter systems, I couldn't see any noticeable difference. There may be some very small differences somewhere, but I think some of that's down to subject movement, because we were shooting at very slow shutter speeds in some of these pictures as well. But basically, the sharpness is really, really good. There is no difference between the Lee, between the K&F, and between the original on the lens. Not noticeable anyway. As I said, I didn't want this to be set up as a lab. I wanted it to be done as a real-world test. And in a real-world situation, you will not notice the difference. There is something that I do want to talk to you about. And if you saw my last video, then I go into it in much, much more detail. But if this is the first time you've seen this video or you're new to the channel, then I'm just going to touch on this point. But I do urge you to go back and look at the first video that will give you much more details. So if we go back into Lightroom and then just have a look at the image up on the screen, what I want to show you is one of these raw files down here. So if we look at one of the raw files and then we actually, in fact we'll go into 100% look, and we zoom up to this top corner, you'll see this slight shadowing up here. Now this photograph was taken with two filters stacked on top of the other. We had the circular polarizer on, and we also had the neutral density 10 stop, so the ND1000. And the issue that we've got here is something which is known as vignetting. And that's when you actually end up with the top of the image sort of darkened by seeing the edges of the filter. Now there are things that we can do to try and get around this. There are different things we can do in the developing. Of course, the easiest to actually just crop it down and take it out. And if you are happy with doing that, then it's not really going to matter at all, because that's it's absolutely fine. And this final image, to be honest, I've cropped it to 16:9, and it gives us absolutely no worries whatsoever. But for those times when you want to use the full frame and you are stacking two filters, you will see this vignetting, which is a little bit of a concern for me. There are certain amounts of adjustments that we can actually do inside the inside Lightroom itself, and we can actually remove some of that vignetting with some editing and reduce it. And we can do that, and we could take that even further, but it's not really the ideal situation, so it's something to bring your mind to. In my previous video, I did do a huge test on the vignetting, and if you go and watch that video next, then it will put all of those details and those settings up for you. So I guess I deserve to give you guys a verdict on what I actually think about this system overall. So in the last video, I wanted to consider whether or not the system was able to cope out in the field, whether it gave me the flexibility, taking up less space in the bag, the quick change of the filters, or worked as it said it would and as it was described. Because these were some of the key problems which I had with my current system that I wanted to resolve. And I'm really pleased to say that actually, as a system goes, that worked really, really well. Absolutely no problems whatsoever. Optically, I have no issues whatsoever using these filters. I would use them as a professional working landscape photographer day in and day out. I wouldn't worry about the colour changes. I wouldn't be worried about the sharpness or anything whatsoever. They work really, really well. The only issue with these filters is the vignetting. And if that gives you an issue, then it may be a deal breaker. But there is something else you need to consider. So I'm just referring some notes that I actually made this afternoon before I made this video and finished it off. For everything which I bought to replace my current system, which involved 2 lens caps, a 67 to 82mm lens adapter, a 77 to 82, the 3 neutral density filters and the circular polarizer, the K&F system came to £220.85. For any of you that have looked at buying filter systems, you will know that for a system with 4 filters covering 2 different lens diameters and 2 lens caps, that £220 is exceptionally good value for money. To go up to another filter size and completely eliminate the vignetting issue, I would have to have gone up and spent £344.90. So we're getting on close now to another £150, certainly another £100 on top at least. And you can get away with that vignetting problem by zooming in a little bit, cropping, or a bit of post-processing editing. And at that value for money, I have to say that unless you are a full-time working professional, day in and day out, where that would be a major drawback, I would 100% recommend that you go out and buy the KF magnetic filter system. But if you want to save some money for a limited time up to the end of this month currently, although I'm trying to get it extended, you can actually get 10% off this kit by using the affiliate link and the offer code Brian, which is all down in the description attached to this video. Bye for now. Get out there and enjoy your photography.